In this video, we're going to talk about the EDI File Crosswalk in our EDI Utility Toolbox, one of 19 tools in the toolbox at the time of this video, but we're always adding new tools, so do check back often. The EDI File Crosswalker, basically it lets you take a table, create a table of lookup and replacement values, so you can do a to and a from list, and use that list in the crosswalker to perform a search and replace operation on any element inside of any HIPAA set EDI file using that table. It's a rules-based utility. You'll need to have a little bit of knowledge of the EDI specifications or use support from EMS. It is totally included in your licensing fee. We'll help you write rules as required. And what it's going to do, it also has workflow attached to it. So when you execute the program, it's going to want to work on an entire folder full of files. And we're going to show you a recommended file layout or folder layout. You can put a single file in that folder if you'd like, or an entire collection. It's a staging folder, folder A here. So you can take your original files, put them in this staging folder. The software will grab each of those files one at a time, and it will go through the table that has been created and do the search and replace on the from and to values. If it can't make a match, it obviously leaves the record alone. If it can make a match, it does the search and replace, and it will make a copy of the file. So it creates a new file, one for one, and puts that copy with the changed values into folder B. We'll also take your original files and clean them out of the staging folder, folder A in this example, unchanged and unharmed. No original files are ever harmed during toolboxing, as we like to say here. So let's take a look at it. Let's actually do a demo on it. All right, here's the EDI Utility Toolbox. I'm going to select the EDI File Crosswalk from the list. It's a very small interface at first. Basically, everything is embedded in the rules, and you can have as many rules as you want. I've got 4 of them written here, but you can have dozens and dozens. The one that we're going to work with is called NM1QC. Now, I'll first show you how to set up a new rule. Get that main menu out of the background. All of the rule containers work the same way. You have to create a rule by naming it first. We'll just call this one testing. And once it's empty at the moment, so once I've created this file testing here, I want to actually edit it. And this is where we set up our rule. Now I'm going to back out of here and we're going to go to an existing rule that's already been written. It's the NM1QC rule, and you'll see why I named it that in a second. So I'm going to edit this rule and just show you where this rule comes from. Before I sorry about that. So here's the rule. Now before we get too far into what's in the rule, let's actually kind of walk over to our Windows Explorer here and talk about what we're going to change. So I have a series of folders here. This is the staging folder, the input folder here. I have a single file in here, but you could easily have hundreds of them. This is the file we're going to do the search and replace on. When I am done, I am going to have that original file untouched living in this archive folder. We'll move there. There's a log file where we can see the log of what was changed, and I'll show you that. The output file is going to be the new file, which of course hasn't been created yet. It will go in that folder. You don't need this lists folder here, but I made one. This is where I keep my lists. Now this is the search and replace list. Here's what it is. It's very simply a tab delimited 2-column text file. So I'm going to look at this one called NM1QC, and you can see it's just a simple text file. It's tab delimited, and there's only 2 columns in it. There's the from and the to. Also going to show you, I'll leave this kind of off to the side here as much as I can. I'm also going to show you the before file. This is a separate product. This is our EDI Reader product. This allows you to open up an EDI file in human readable form, actually displays the claims in a file in a grid format, which can of course be sorted. There's a lot of videos out on a YouTube channel on how to use this particular product, but I like to show the before. We've got 9,397 claims in this file. It's a pretty good size file. We're going to change the subscriber IDs. Let's suppose we're moving to a new system, and we took advantage of the opportunity to do a lot of renumbering. But until such time as claims are all flushed through your payers, and that could be a period of 18 months or longer, we may be getting mixed results where we're getting claims adjudicated under an old subscriber ID. We need to have it under a new subscriber ID. This is a great way to search and replace and change all your outgoing as well as your incoming files. This happens to be an 835 remittance, but it could very well be an 837 claim on its way out to a payer. So here's a bunch of subscriber IDs, and if you see behind here, let me see if I can line them up. You'll see these numbers start with AD and what have you. Here is the list on the left. That's the from value. We're going to change it to a different numbering sequence. In this case, they all start with an A and a sequential number. I also, just for fun, stuck a Dave and an Eric up there just to show you. So this list can be created any way you want. You can use Excel and save it as a tab delimited text. That's probably the simplest way to do it. You can use a report writer out of your system, maybe dump numbers out of your two billing systems and convert those to tab delimited text. Or you could actually use the crosswalker itself, and I'll show you that in 1 second. All right, so here's how we set up the rule. Everything in red is required. Everything else is optional. The first thing we need to tell it is, what are we converting? We're going to do a search and replace on what kind of file, and it's very specific to not just the file but the version. So an 835 5010 is what we're going to be working on here. It also works on 4010, as you can see. 837 professional files, dental files, institutional files are separated. So we selected an 835 5010. So what are we going to change? We need to tell it the loop, the segment, and the element, and optionally the qualifier. This happened to be an SVC segment or a compound segment, you would also have a sub-element possibly. So we're going to change the patient ID, which is loop 2100. It's the NM1 segment. Optionally, because there's also billed subscribers and other types of NM1 segments out there, the QC is the patient. So we're going to give it that qualifier. I'm looking for element 09. So that's what we're going to change, and we're going to change based on what is in this crosswalk file. Now that's that same text file we were just looking at. You can also use this editor here. And by the way, you browse to the file once it's already been created by this little button here. Well, you can also use the onboard editor to either create it in the first place or just to edit it. So this is the exact same file as just showing you, but you can also use this little container to edit it. So you can add, insert records, delete records, etc. So that's our crosswalk. And then down here, here's the folders for the input path, the output, the archive, and the log path. And those are the paths, and you also would select these options down here. Do you want to actually archive the files? We do recommend it. So you're always cleaning this input folder out. You want to search subdirectories. That is completely up to you, but you could have an input folder with maybe 3 different payers in it, and it will search all of them. That's up to you. You can have a progress bar. I don't think it's entirely necessary for the file we're about to do because it moves pretty quickly, but you know, on a large folder, you may want to see how the progress is working. And the clear options will clear the archive, the output, and the log each time you run it new. So it's always a fresh log, or you can let them append. So that's it. I've set up my rule. I'm ready to run it. So hold on your seatbelts here, and boom. This is not a trickery of videography here. This is exactly how fast it went. It's the start time and the end time. The crosswalk is complete. It crosswalked one file in 1 second. It was a 6 meg file, and it made almost 10,000 replacements. It was really that quick. So let's actually take a look at our result. So we have our crosswalker. Let's see where the files went. Our input file is now empty because we chose to move it to an archive, and there it is. It's completely unchanged and safe. The output file is now here, and it's the same name of the file, but it puts the right on the front. It pre-appends the name of the rule that you used, which was NM1QC, and then I have a log file, which we'll come back to in a second. Now let's do our little before and afters. Here is our before file. Before we did any changes, still up in memory here. I'm going to actually load its the counterpart, or the newly created, trouble with my mouse here, the newly created file, and it is in the output folder. And there it is. Now, unfortunately, I put them, they're not sorted in the same order here anymore, but we see the numbers have indeed changed. Instead of the ADK series here, we have the A with the sequential value on it, and somewhere in here I think I've got at least one. There they are. At least one Eric and at least one Dave. So we have actually gone through and made that search and replace. This file is otherwise unchanged, same number of claims before and after. The only thing that's different is we've crosswalked all these subscriber IDs. And in our log file, it's a simple text file. It just tells us what we already saw in our little splash window there. It will tell you what files were crosswalked. In this case, it was only one, but you might have thousands, and you would see them all listed here. And that is the EDI File Crosswalk. It can be used on any EDI file, as you saw. It can be used on any element inside the EDI files. Any questions, comments, please holler. And contact information is below. Visit our website and visit our YouTube channel often for updates.